What happens when a YouTuber decides they want to be a country artist? Will it be good? Will people care? Will it be an embarrassing disaster? I don't know that we have a lot of examples of this having happened. I mean, I know Ryan Higa put out that song Millennial Love a few years ago, but that was like a one-off joke.
The ship is sailing to the sea.
The Gregory brothers, who you might know from their current hit, It's Corn,
It's cold.
have certainly played some like bluegrassy songs over the years. There's even this one weird music critic that actually wrote a song about being a critic and put it on his channel way before anyone really watched his channel.
Spend my days angry at guys who make money.
And I'm sure there's others that I just don't know about. But recently, Rhett McLoughlin, who you might know either as part of Rhett Link or one of the hosts of Good Mythical Morning, you know, those videos where they're like eating wacky hot dogs or like blending food together that you always see on your homepage, decided to release a country music album under the name James and the Shame. And I find this a fascinating move and I want to talk about it today. But first, I want to talk about the sponsor of today's video, which is SeatGeek. Live events are back, and that means a lot of fun stuff is happening, and that means you need tickets for all that fun stuff. And fortunately, with SeatGeek, you can get $20 off your pair of tickets using my promo code Grady Smith. If you didn't know what SeatGeek is, it's the ticketing app that helps you find tickets at great prices. And you know what, just let me show you. So obviously I'm new to Nashville, so when I open SeatGeek, it is set to this city. Looks like Elton John is playing a show, but there's a ton of concerts, there's sports, there's comedy shows. It looks like Keith Urban is having a concert with super discounted tickets. Look, these ones are $37. 37's my lucky number. But if you got a friend coming into town that wants to go see a Tennessee Titans game, I could go do that. If I got someone else coming into town and they want to see, I don't know, a Broadway tour, we could do that too. And their whole system of green, yellow, and red kind of ticket deals makes it super easy to find tickets at a great price. I've even heard from some of y'all after the last time SeatGeek sponsored a video that you found it very useful and were able to find some last minute tickets. And if you want to use one of my promo codes, don't worry, I got the hookup for you. Use code Grady Smith, one word, for $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase using the promo code Grady Smith. So if you go to the link in the description, you can download the app, and thanks to SeatGeek for sponsoring the video. Okay, so Rhett McLoughlin was born in Georgia but raised in North Carolina. When I think of him, this is weird, but I think back to like early Rhett and Link. I think of them with that weird music video where there was like trees growing out of their belly button. I swear I remember their old comedy videos. I've never been like a viewer of Good Mythical Morning or any of that, but obviously I know who they are. They're an extremely big deal on the platform and kind of like the rare OG YouTubers that are still doing the YouTube thing. I do remember they were on my radar a couple years ago because they made these videos about kind of how they grew up as Christians, but they were sort of deconstructing their faith and weren't sure what they believed, but it certainly wasn't the same as their upbringing. And they made these videos a few years ago, and that was like a big conversation on the internet, but honestly, Rhett's not been super on my radar. But I heard from a lot of people that he was releasing this project called Human Overboard, and that his kind of chosen performer's name was James and the Shame. I believe James is his middle name, and the shame is just, I suppose, his condition. When I go to his Spotify bio, he talks about growing up listening to country music from people like George Jones and Merle Haggard, not to mention Elvis Presley and Roy Orbison. Those two make a lot of sense to me, having now heard this album. And it also says that he's recently been very influenced by the music of Jason Isbell, Sturgill Simpson, Tyler Childers, so Rhett has found himself in this kind of alt-country world that all of us around here know very well. And I think you can hear all of those influences as well as some of the deconstruction thoughts that I mentioned before on his album Human Overboard, which is surprisingly country and I think a very high quality album.
Picked up on it first thing.
First off, I want to talk about the cover, which has that same kind of gorgeous green watery color. Weirdly, I guess this is just the thing on my mind lately. I mean, clearly, it's like a shade of green I like, but it's the exact same as the Ingrid Andress kind of green. But in this case, we got Rhett looking all messianic, almost big beard and hair, and he is in the water, and there's either seaweed or tentacles at his feet with kind of a ship in the background. I think that this could mean a lot of things. Maybe it is a reference to when Jesus was walking on the water and he invites Peter onto the water, but Peter starts to sink. Perhaps it's just a reference to like early Genesis and being in the deep with the Leviathan. I don't know, but it's a very cool cover and I really like it. This is an album about doubt. I used the word deconstruction earlier, but I would say that this album is more deconstructed. It's not just kind of sitting in this like, oh, I think I believe this, but it kind of doesn't make sense to me. This is someone that has personally decided Christianity is not true. He does not claim to know what is true, but he is not kind of keeping one foot in and one foot out. On the opening track, Believe Me, which I would say is the best track on the album, he's really pleading with the loved ones in his lives that, you know, he's not asking you to agree with the decisions he's made, but he's just asking you to believe him, that he has sincerely come upon these convictions, that his prior convictions are not what he believes anymore.
I don't think it's
And given that giant change and this move away from faith, which was a big part of his life, the album is kind of this collection of messy responses to that change and how it kind of ripples and affects the people in his circle. On Sorry, he kind of laments, I did nothing wrong and you did nothing wrong, so why do I feel the need to say sorry in a song?
you did nothing wrong.
There's that kind of internal shame and feeling that he is disappointing those near him. In other moments, like this song Where We're Going, which is a love song to his wife, he admits that he doesn't know where he's going, but he is sure that he wants to be committed to her.
You saw it for yourself.
The interesting part of this album is when it slips into these moments of real intense bitterness and resentment, and yet at the same time kind of maintains a posture of choosing love and this kind of progression out of faith. On songs like In Vain, I definitely get the sense that Rhett has a real chip on his shoulder toward people from the church that he views as kind of, for lack of a better term, gun-toting Trumpy Republicans. He says, I'm trying to figure out where you draw the line because watching people die seems to be fine. And he mentions the Puritan idea of not wanting a nipple to be shown or of, you know, war basically and trying to tell brown people across the world that they're wrong. I personally think it's silly to isolate Christians as some kind of uniquely violent warmongers, especially after the 20th century when humanism was the new prevailing ideology and secularism was so on the rise, and it was the bloodiest century in world history by far. I think that would suggest there is something more endemic about our desire to be divided, to fight, to kill, than simply religion. But even though I think songs like that almost undermine this new love that he claims to be choosing, I kind of think that's why this record is great, because it is so in it. Like, it is so kind of vacillating back and forth by, like, you know, we just believe different things, and then the next second it's very still bitter and still kind of has some clearly unresolved feelings about things. And in that way, this album feels just so very honest to me. And musically, I think the album sounds very honest too. I think the music is well matched to the lyrics here because these arrangements are quite open and quite country. I mean, you're working with a lot of acoustic guitar, a lot of kind of low string bass, tons of steel atmosphere. You've even got little like a little kiss of mariachi maybe. There's those kind of like shakers throughout here, and brushed drums keep everything very light. It's just kind of airy and very Californian in that way. And Rhett's voice, he's not like some big Stapleton belter, but it's a good, strong voice. And I think his songs, like, he tells these stories quite plainly and effectively. And it does communicate the kind of sad but resolute things he is saying. I do think that opening track, Believe Me, is the best song on the album. It's kind of a mission statement for the whole project. If you understand that song and how he just wants to be seen in his confusion, where he's at, and the fact that he doesn't know what he believes, I think you'll kind of understand the whole project. But I just for a second want to springboard off that song into a discussion of this genre that I'm going to call dream country that I've just noticed has kind of been in the air, and I haven't had a good word for it. So I got that term dream country from someone named Elise that I met here in Nashville. She showed me this song called Can't Stop Crying by a guy named Austin Manuel, and she really liked it.
Don't do it fine, but I can't stop crying over you.
I listened and I was like, oh, this is a cool vibe. What do you call this vibe? And she said dream country. And I liked that term because it kind of fits this sort of reverberating kind of Mazzy Star aesthetic of the music. There's something very atmospheric about it. And it reminded me immediately of not only Believe Me by James and the Shame, but also this song that's been popping off on TikTok by a guy named Van Andrew called Sad Cowboys and Rock and Roll.
Got me feeling like James Dean, high on your
that has a similar kind of like slow motion, end of prom in like a teen movie, vintage, cool, Western aesthetic to it. And all of those definitely feel heavily influenced by the current success of Orville Peck.
6 summers down, another dreamless night.
Who's got that kind of bellowing voice and that is deep tenor guitars and that sort of Western feeling to it and all of the reverb and the steely atmosphere, which all of that feels very influenced by Elvis as well as Roy Orbison. Although, more recently, I would say it's probably even more influenced by the success of someone like Lana Del Rey, you know, the queen of summertime sadness herself.
Kiss me hard before you go.
Who I would say heavily influenced maybe the sound of Orville, even the sound of Casey Musgraves as we went into like Golden Hour and Star-Crossed. Way more of that kind of like disaffected California sound.
I need to step away. And if
Lana also has that song Breaking Up Slowly with Nikki Lane. Nikki Lane on her new album, Denim and Diamonds, has that song Faded. So there's just this kind of, I don't know what the term would be for it, maybe indie country, dream country sound. Another one I just thought of is Sam Outlaw. I mean, I haven't listened to Sam Outlaw in a while, but he kind of has that same aesthetic. It's something, there's something Californian about it. And maybe it's finding its way into country music. And maybe like, it seems kind of liberal as a sound. Can a sound be liberal? I don't know, but you know, there's that. In any case, Believe Me reminded me of this sort of little growing, dreamy sound that Little Big Town tried to do that. At this point, I'm just rambling, but it's my attempt to verbally process whatever this kind of rising trend is. I don't know if it even is a trend, but I hear it, I'm saying it. Maybe someone smarter than me can codify what the rules are of this genre. But yeah, those are just my loose thoughts on Rhett McLoughlin as James and the Shame. And overall, I think pretty successful album. Very interesting, very messy, but also very refined. So let me know what you guys think of it, if you've listened to it, if you think it's successful, if you think I'm wrong. I mean, I was looking on Reddit and like the pop heads like post about this and they were being brutal to this album, but I was like, I don't think it's bad at all, but maybe it's harder to see him in that light if you are a super fan of his personally, but you know, I really wasn't. So I kind of went in fresh and I was like, solid. And definitely better than I was expecting from big YouTuber making a passion project. I mean, I thought this was better than when you see someone like Jeff Daniels or Steve Martin and their little passion project bands. I thought this was like a really serious project. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Later, y'all.